I'd like to say welcome, Bryan. I mean, we're in your studio, which is fantastic. This is a room I know very well. I've done tons of work here over the years. We've had a 9-piece band rehearsing in this room, haven't we?
Yeah, really. My memory is so vague about these things.
Well, you wouldn't have been. No, you were out there.
Oh, yeah. Sort of keeping out of trouble.
Yeah, thanks for doing this, Bryan. It's great to have you on the show. I did, though, when you two first met and what projects you worked on briefly. And then we can get on to the more important person in the room, of course.
Well, clearly. It's... Bryan is, because I'm on the album that we're going to talk about, Loose Talk, because I believe I am on it, that Bryan is actually I'm very proud to say, my longest working relationship.
Wow.
We've been working together for 40 years.
Longer than Floyd?
Longer than Floyd. Yeah, well, that all came about. Practically everything major in my life.
It started with Kiss and Tell, did it?
It started with Kiss and Tell, yeah.
Do you have that, James?
That's him. Yeah. That's so funky.
Do you know what? I've got to say, I would have been perfectly happy if I quit then and was just spent the rest of my life being known as the Kiss and Tell guy. That would be fine.
But Nile Rodgers, the great Nile Rodgers, saying, "Wow, man, that bass part is excellent."
It's still.
Well, briefly, while we're on that, we should start there because Nile Rodgers has been on Rockonteurs as well, and he famously talks about how, you inspired him.
He's amazing. No, he can talk about anything.
Yeah. But Roxy, he named it Chic because of Roxy, and I do think that Love Is the Drug. It
absolutely is. That's
upfront bass lead. Would you say that, Bryan?
That was the great Johnny
Gustafson.
Yeah. But you carry the flag beautifully.
Oh, Bryan.
Because I wonder if because when Chic came along and they're wearing the white dinner jackets.
It was literally. He took the story wasn't it? He was in London. He was over here playing with the Sesame Street lot, and he went to see Roxy at Wembley, and he got to a phone box and called Nard back, and we all went, "I've got it. I've seen it. I've got it. It's these guys. That's it."
I see the future.
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, do you think there would have been no good times, Bryan? Do you think there would have been no good times?
I don't know
the bass line is the first. It's because I've played it enough times. Dum 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 dum. It's the same sort of timing. Dum dum ba dum ba dum dum ba dum dum.
Yeah,
it's good times.
We should talk about this new album, Loose Talk, and how it came about.
Well, let's see. About must be 4 or 5 years ago. I met Amelia, who's the kind of star of the record, and who's a great writer, and she writes pieces and recites them.
Yeah, performance texts.
Performance things. And I went to a performance in the East End somewhere, and I thought it was great. I liked the writing very much, and the delivery also. And she ended up doing her first, her audiobook here in this very room, and I helped to make that with one of the engineers here. And I said we should do something together. Your words and my music, and that's how it started and how it's continued. And we're now into the second album.
Well, was there anything that you recognised in her words that you connected with?
I don't know. Apart from the cool delivery, I don't know. It's the right choice of words. In the right order. It's like any writer who you kind of feel, oh yeah, that's cool, that's good. And I'm quite particular about words, being a sometime lyricist.
Yeah, we've noticed that.
And I just thought, wow, this is really good. And it's been a bit of an adventure. It's like opening up a new chapter of the... for the repertoire.
Because and you've mentioned for things like Every Dream, Home, a Heartache.
Yeah,
that seems like sort of similar sort of territory.
Yeah, well, that was I suppose I was exploring a monologue with, with the right setting, and that worked really well.
But what I think is interesting is, because of knowing how particular you are about your own vocals and how hard you are on yourself, I've seen it, how you, when you're working with someone else, well, I mean, especially when it's spoken word, when you go, yep, that's it, that's the vocal. Or what sort of producing you would do for that?
Well, the music part of it is my department. And Amelia does the texts and records them, most of them on her own. And then together with James, who I work with, we kind of, edit them, and we don't change anything around in terms of the moving any of the writing around, but we might just sort of make a few spaces here and there and choose what we think is the best version. And normally it's the first take, actually. So it's
always the way, no matter what you're doing, isn't it?
Always. Always like that. And then I always have bits of music lying around. I mean, you probably do. And then you try and find a place for it. What's this going to do? Where is it going to be? Will it ever be heard? And some bits of things that I've never really found a home for, I've found a home here. And but constantly doing stuff, finding things, and making this stuff work. I don't know. It's what one does.
Because I can hear just in the background,
sort of crafting away. So some of the pieces musically, they originate from kind of just demos I've just been playing and sort of moaning along in the back.
Because you can hear your voice.
As one does.
It sounds quite magical and mysterious.
Well, mysterious is good. I think her work, you were trying to pin me down a while, there's a haunting quality about these texts, even though they're dealing quite often with everyday life themes, which is, we all have everyday lives, really. And then we try and turn them into something hopefully magical at the end, like Guy's bass part on Kiss and Tell.
I think there's something very...
What a segue.
It's sort of, thought sculpture.
I think there's some sort of film noir element to the way it
very much so.
Itself.
Hence the cover, really. Which and we were talking about when we were kind of towards the end of completing the album. There's always how do we present this, and what will the cover be? We'll try and describe roughly what is there. And I thought of a film noir image, and we were at a telephone, and Amelia took the picture, and then here we did it. We did all the artwork as we do ourselves, and it's lavishly illustrated. This is a kind of mock-up. We should have it in a couple of weeks.
Because you
it's lavishly illustrated, of course.
You directed the video as well, didn't you?
Yeah,
Is that the first time we've done that?
I filmed it, and James and I edited the thing together, it's a very tight unit. Me and James Garsk and Amelia. And
they've got a full-on factory set up here now.
And then sort of star musicians like yourself who appear in sort of cameo roles to flesh it out and make it sound good. Yeah.
But that's, as you said, Brad, because it's the way you work is that there is a constant flux of there's new stuff, old stuff, and it's which I love. So there's the organic nature of the way your work presents. I mean, because there's an Alan Spencer credit on this album.
Yeah, I know.
So that's
that was a piece. That's the oldest kind of originating piece from I don't know, early 70s, and a piano thing that I did up at Air Studios, the old Air,
Oxford Circus.
On Oxford Circus. What a fine place it was. To be
happy days.
And we made. For Your Pleasure there. That's where we started working on For Your Pleasure, the Roxy album, and then it carried on there until it closed, really. Anyway, so I had this piano piece floating around for a long time, and Alan Spencer played on it a couple of years later. I think I sort of got it out, and it was, I think it was the first time I worked with him.
Oh, right. Oh, my God.
Can't believe this is from For Your Pleasure.
I have to, just for our listeners,
so
Alan
it might
Spencer,
have been 2 or 3 years later.
Alan Spencer, the legendary bass player, one of my all-time heroes, who originally was played for Joe Cocker, and then played for Roxy Music.
Players.
Yeah, amazing. Manifesto, Flesh and Blood, all those great Roxy records.
Is he still
with
with
him?
us?
No, he passed a long time ago.
Avalon, he played the bass.
Of course,
yeah. The track Avalon and a few other things on.
And that's made its way finally onto this record. Is that what you're saying? The piano?
Yes, it has. Yeah.
That's extraordinary.
That must feel
with Alan's performance.
I thought, and it's a great performance. But, that must be so fantastically satisfying to think.
It really is.
I mean, was that like an itch you couldn't scratch? It's like, one day,
one day you will find
sweetheart,
a place. Don't
find a home. Yeah, exactly.
So you go to Hatton Garden and get the safe and get the tape.
I think it's one of the advantages that you've got, because I walked around the studio of yours and you've got all the tapes out the back.
Odds and sods. But it's a great place to work.
It's a fantastic place to work. It's you're the only person I know over here. So in England, who has this sort of proper HQ, stroke Warhol factory,
it's our little
Bauhaus.
Well, we saw the white dinner jacket out the back. That's still there.
Oh, really? They've been nosing around.
Well, we were introduced to it, Brian. In fact,
we were led. So we weren't.
It's all for sale.
But I saw, because when you first worked with her, and I'm guessing it was the first thing, was Star, the first track.
It was, yeah.
Well, that's Trent Reznor, isn't it?
And Atticus Ross, 9 Inch Nails. And I met them a couple of times. They came to a show I did in LA. And they sent me some things to see if we could collaborate. And Star I really liked, and developed it into the record. And I asked Amelia if she'd help with the lyric, and she ended up writing the lyric. Which was really good. It's when I did the retrospective box set last year, 50 years, man and boy, of solo work. It's a solo work thing. Mm-hmm. We had kind of 80 tracks on the box set, and I said, maybe we should put something, because Star was completed and mixed, and I thought, let's add this to show people that I'm still alive and working. And this is a taste of, what I'm doing now. And Loose Talk is the album, which doesn't have Star on it, but Star will appear at a later date on it.
Well, the first album didn't have Virginia Plain on it.
That's the word. I know. Things have a way of spinning around and coming back to you.
Well, it's nice, though, you haven't changed your MO in all that time.
No.
Exactly. Yeah. We'll write the single later.
Brian, I don't know whether you want to, but I think we'd really love to talk about some of the beginnings and you growing up. Because I think the most interesting thing about you and is it was quite obvious to us as young fans that there was more than just musical inspiration here, that you were bringing to us, Humphrey Bogart for a start. And so I just think, what was it like as a kid? Were your parents introducing you to lots of different art?
No. But I went to a really good school. I went to the local grammar school and had really good teachers there. The art teacher took me under his wing in the sixth form, and the English teacher as well. I was art subjects was what I liked to do, and I wasn't really into maths or whatever. And in the sixth form, I started to develop a real interest and a passion for art, and music had started much earlier. when I was about 9, I think, I went to my first concert, which was New Orleans Jazz, Chris Barber's jazz band.
Oh, wow.
Which was the kind of trad boom of... It was actually popularized by Lonnie Donegan, who had who played in that band. He was playing banjo.
Because he did the interval, didn't he? That's where the
And he
skiffle
did the
thing started.
skiffle set,
exactly.
yeah.
And did the Rock Island Line and whatever hits that he had.
Yeah.
He kind of made people aware of great people like Leadbelly, American blues singers. And so I was like captivated by this live, my first live concert, and quickly followed by seeing the Platters. Do you know who that is?
Oh,
wow.
Smoke Gets in Your Eyes.
Yes, but how you?
And so on.
Is that what led to you covering
singing.
that? Is that what led to you covering that?
Probably.
Yeah,
probably. And I saw with, I think maybe it was my Uncle Bryan or somebody took me to the City Hall for Chris Barber, and then the Platters played somewhere else. Bill Haley I saw also. I was about 11 then, I think. And that was...
you're basically ticking every box here for that time.
I went to like Forrest Gump, yeah. I won 2 front row seats for Bill Haley and his Comets. And that was the first rock and roll tour.
How did you win them?
It was a Radio Luxembourg competition. And you had to write in, they gave you 6 songs by Bill Haley, right? And you had to say which order did he like them best.
Oh my God! But who even knew 6 songs by
See
Bill
You Later,
Haley?
Alligator. I thought that was really good, and I said he must like that best, and Rock Round the Clock second. And that's as far as I can remember. And then so that's the first time my name was read out on the radio. Then.
Wow.
And the winner is...
Bryan Ferry of Newcastle.
No, she had a Birmingham accent. She was a comedian, I think, Beryl Reid. If you
No way!
Yeah.
So you were first announced by Beryl Reid. That's amazing, Brian.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
And so I went with my big sister to I think it was the Sunderland Odeon where Bill Haley played, and Teddy Boys and everything. It was really, going crazy and dancing in the aisle. First time, this sort of youth phenomenon had really hit.
And did the style affect you? Did you think, oh my God, hang on, these guys look cool? Was there any of that?
All the musicians I saw look cool. Because I then kind of quickly swatted up on all the jazz periods and so on. I had a newspaper round, and it was a very heavy bag of newspapers I had to take around in the morning before school, and then in the evening after school. And in the evening round were all the music magazines like Melody Maker, NME,
Disc,
Downbeat, and various. Wow. Yeah, with the American, jazz news was a good one. And reading about, Charlie Parker and stuff. And I sort of saved up and bought an EP. I had some 78s. Little Richard, Fats Domino, Elvis. Ken Collier might have been the first one.
Oh, Ken Collier. Was there a record shop? Was there like one?
Yeah, there was. It's called Windows in Newcastle. And... that was amazing, and
didn't Brian Johnson mention that?
I think
I'd
Brian Johnson
save
might have
up
mentioned
5 and 6 to buy a single, and you go and sort of look in the window and at all the great instruments.
Is that in the arcade?
Yeah, in the arcade.
The one in the arcade?
Brian
Yes.
Yeah, the Royal Arcade, I think it was called.
Yes, Royal Arcade. Yes.
And
I think it's still there. Well, the guitar shop, I think, is still there.
I think it might have closed last year, but it was very sad. But trumpets. Saxophones, beautiful things, and guitars, and I couldn't play anything, but I just looked at those instruments, and then we'd go into a booth and hear the record first, and then buy it.
Yeah, of course.
And
I did.
And you could choose whether you want to have the record on a 78 or a 45, which were coming out.
Because they were competing
45.
formats, weren't they?
There were two formats.
Yeah, because...
And I went for 78s because they're bigger, you know, and they seemed like...
Do you still have them, Bryan?
Oh, of course, yeah.
You just reminded me that the Saturday after Top of the Pops was on with Virginia Plain, I went to the record shop in Chapel Market and I couldn't wait to get home and asked to listen to it in the booth again.
Yeah, that's right. You want to hear it. Make sure it's the right one.
But didn't your mum take food for a local projectionist?
Yeah, like cinema parodies or kind of thing.
What, do they not pay projectionists?
Well, I don't know. It was just kindness. Sandwiches and tea and scones, perhaps. And we were given free tickets. You know, we could go when we wanted. Yeah, and I remember seeing Gone with the Wind there. Wooden seats. In the cinema.
Because that very much that old Hollywood.
The Glebe Cinema it was called. Yeah. It was very near my dad's allotment where he had his pigeon loft. It's a whole culture of that, you see.
Oh, fantastic.
Up there.
But what films do you remember?
Not many pigeon lofts down here in London, really.
Because I think so much of what you did was in the style of that old American movie scene.
Well, cinema was a big influence. Yeah, I mean, it was like a magical... And, of course, we named the band after cinema. Andy Mackay and I made a list of, Rex, Rialto, Odeon, Plaza, Roxy. Maybe Roxy is good. And
was it always, we wanted those with music?
Because cinemas were places where you could go and see magical things, and beautiful scenes and great words and music, everything. And it was like, picture palaces. And Roxy was a good name, I thought. And that's when we started.
It's perfect. It's one of those. It is such a perfect name, though, isn't it? And it's just so absolutely describes the band somehow.
Yeah. We mentioned cycling, and I just want to mention.
I done graduate. It started with me and Andy. Actually, it started with me and Andy and Graham Simpson, who was a bass player.
Phenomenal bass player.
Graham had been in a band with me at college, and he was very into jazz and beat poetry. He was very cool, Graham.
Eric Dolphy he was into, wasn't it?
Eric Dolphy, exactly. Yeah. And he had all these beautiful albums, like a lot of Blue Note LPs, in pristine condition. No one was allowed. We all lived in the same house, and nobody was allowed to touch these pristine albums. And he was fabulous. And he drove the van when we were in this college band.
Also, because John Porter shows up.
And John played guitar in the band for a short while, and John was great. And is great. And I was doing things with John. But quite recently. Let's see. It was my first solo record I made with John. Hard Rain's Gonna Fall, and the whole album, These Foolish Things. And John was playing, he was a guitarist, but he could also play bass, putting you out of a job, of course. But, he was a great bass player because he played unusual, very melodic lines and bouncing around. And, really great.
Well, the thing is, there's a lovely...
Great musician.
Lovely sidebar with John Porter is that he then went on to be a BBC producer. He used to produce those radio sessions that people did for John Peel and stuff like that. And the Smiths did it, having just finished recording their first album. They went and did this BBC session, and Johnny Marr goes, "Hang on a minute, you're John Porter, aren't you? From Roxy Music." Went, "Yeah." Went, "No, forget it." And then got him to re-record their album and produce it.
Wow. Wow. I'm trying to just get all these little elements that I think made you. We mentioned cycling.
Lots of stuff.
I think cycling was, because I remember that being such a continental thing.
Oh, it was very glamorous. It seemed the most glamorous of sports when I was a kid. very colourful, the costumes and the whole culture built around it. You know, Jacques Anquetil and they're these great riders. There was the English rider Tommy Simpson. He was pretty good.
Yeah,
very good.
Died on Mont Ventoux, was it? Mm-hmm. But also you went to an opera, didn't you, on your own, I heard, when you were very young.
Yeah. Having gone to see a couple of music things I mentioned, I sort of went to see La Bohème in the Theatre Royal in Newcastle. And I came out in tears. I was so moved by the whole thing. Yeah, God bless him. Pip, young lad.
Did you go on your own, Bryan?
Yeah, I did, actually, yeah.
Was that because you couldn't find anyone to... Or too embarrassed?
Yeah, well, I didn't know anyone who would have liked to go see it. And I didn't have any money and probably too embarrassed to ask anyone. And I remember I had a little trench coat at the time, so it was my first foray into film noir. Puccini, yes.
But that's because with the thing is, it's just the sheer amount of influences is correct. Where from high art
great.
and low
Life
art,
is so interesting. There's so many things you can do, and when you're a kid, of course, you go through. When you're a teenager, you go through different phases of things you're really into. I was very into rock climbing at one point, which was. Why? I mean, I just thought it was very kind of romantic. Edward Whymper and all these kind of great Alpine.
Always things that have a great wardrobe.
Great tweed sort of jumpers and things. Climbing the Matterhorn. I mean, that was, maybe I'll do that.
I got
clay piped.
I got so into
poetry.
I tell you what, I got really into it too.
Kent pegs.
And I think what's so exciting about it when you get into it is it's like being in a band. You've got to put this little army together to achieve this goal. I mean, the metaphor's obvious.
Yeah. Well, teamwork appeals to me. I obviously kind of after school, I went to study art, painting, and that's what I kind of... Well, first of all, I wanted to be an art historian, really, and then the more I studied art, the more I wanted to be an artist myself. And, And where was I? Well,
no, I want to pick up on something here, because something that I think is absolutely mind-blowing is that you go to study art in Newcastle, and the guy doing the foundation year is Richard Hamilton.
I know.
Amazing. I mean, that's absurd. There's we had Basquiat was art. It's crazy.
And he was great because he was at the same time a link to obviously the American pop artists, Warhol and so on. And also, he was a friend and devotee, as it were, of Marcel Duchamp, who was a conceptual artist. So, the whole place at Newcastle and the students there. It was the first time I'd met other artists, and all kids who wanted to be artists, and it was really cool. It was great, and I still have friends from that time.
What about your work from I've seen a picture.
So anyway, music, I eventually ended up doing, because it is a kind of collaborative thing all the time. Being a painter is great if you can have the self-discipline, and but it's quite a lonely art.
Well, so many
being on your own
working class people who went to art school didn't do art in the 60s.
It led to something else, and that was the great thing about it. It was in my case 4 years to kind of try and find myself, and how can I make something that is kind of better than me, which is always what you're trying to do.
And I'm wondering if, because the thing of looking to express yourself as an artist, how the voice that you arrived at, which is so completely unique.
Yeah.
Trial and error.
But what made you think, actually, no, this is because...
I don't know. I mean, it just, you end up being yourself, but you start off kind of imitating people, really, I guess.
I think I can hear elements of Noel Coward in there as well, that sort of vibrato.
That wouldn't be my first choice, but I mean, there's a Private Lives is on now, actually, in in the West End, I believe.
It's usually on.
Yeah.
But also, what I think, even though I know, having done a whole album of Dylan with you, I mean, there's a sort of, seems to be like even though musically there's not a Dylan influence, but vocally there almost the throwaway element of the way you throw lines away. You know what I mean?
He's a great writer. I mean, So when I was looking for songs to make that first solo album, it came about because I just finished For Your Pleasure in Air Studios, and I loved the process of making that album, and I just wanted to make another record, and so it was only the same year. Actually, I made 3 albums in that 12
I think there were two years. There were 6 releases. 3 Roxy and 3 of yours.
And anyway, after For Your Pleasure, I thought I wanted to make another record. And John had played bass on the Roxy album, John Porter, who you mentioned. And I said, let's choose some songs and make a record. And like a singer's record, like people like Sinatra or Elvis or Bing Crosby or whoever, all the great singers, they weren't really songwriters, they were just performers and interpreters of other people's tunes. And anyway, the first track we did was a Bob Dylan one, Hard Rain's Gonna Fall. I thought, well, maybe this is a way of doing it. And so just pounded the piano, and
it's a funny song to choose because it's just got that repetitive.
Yeah, but
and it's
I
like
had such great players on that record that we made it into something.
Great version.
Yeah, John played bass and guitar. Eddie Jobson did these brilliant string parts.
And the BVs are so good.
Paul Thompson, great drummer.
The great Paul Thompson.
Yeah.
The backing vocals are so good on that as well with the girls.
Yeah. That was good because I don't know. There were 2 sets of backing vocalists on that. Some English girls who were called the Angelettes, and 2 American girls who were passing through on tour with Dr. John. So John Porter was a great fan of New Orleans stuff.
He
ended up
there,
living there, making blues records and stuff. And so we got these Jesse Davis, I think, was it? And Robbie Montgomery, great singers, and they were the principal voices in the BV section. And it was the first time I'd worked with singers of that magnitude. They were really, really great, and that's inspiring to work with good people. Brian,
I'd like to
very inspiring.
Just talk about Richard Hamilton a bit more, because I think that inspiration of his work and the sort of love of Americana and pop art. I mean, there's a famous photograph that Richard Hamilton took of a car with a model on it.
And he's on the
satellite
NFL American football.
An American rocket. And it has the sort of look.
Maybe that's why I like the NFL. I kind of follow that every year. The American football is the sport I like to watch, apart from the tour, of course.
But that picture has a look of maybe the first album sleeve in a way, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Taken from above.
It's exactly that sort of thing. And Richard would come and do a tutorial on a Monday. And this was in my first year. And he was quite an awesome figure because he was very, very, very cool guy. I mean, he was very, very intelligent, very, very intellectual, the most intellectual.
And he lived up. Did he live up there?
No, he lived in. Well, he lived there. He spent days up there, and then drove. He commuted to, and he had this to London. He lived Hampstead, I think, Highgate, and in this beautiful Common gear.
Oh wow!
So him,
a very cool design of this car, and he was very, very good, and we sort of were a bit in awe of him. all the students, but he taught by example, really. I mean, he had his own studio in the building, and we would sort of, catch glimpses of him at work on the large glass. And
the Duchamp,
the reconstruction he did.
Bride Strip.
Oh yeah, that's it. Which is in Philadelphia, isn't it? I believe
it is the original.
Yeah, I remember seeing it on tour with him.
His version is in the Tate Gallery because it was damaged. You see, so it's a cracked, a flawed masterpiece, and Richard did a recreation of it, and which was very good, and. Yeah, he was working on lots of great things like that. It was, I think, my favourite period of his work was the mid-'60s, when he was doing his teaching up there in the Northeast.
But did he teach you irony, do you think? Was that
no, I think that was...
Being ironic about Americana?
I don't know. I think him and all the other students I was... around at that time were very, they were all very, very much an influence on how I developed, I think. There's a guy called Mark Lancaster he was older than we were. He was a kind of mature student, 10 years older or whatever. And Mark was very cool. And he went to work with Andy Warhol in New York, screen printing. But in the factory, came back with tales of all these people that he worked with. And then he worked with Jasper Johns for the next 15 years or something. And Mark knew everyone in New York. So over the years, I would start... As the years went by, I got into music, and I'd go through New York, and I'd meet all these incredible people.
You were always plugged into the art scene there, weren't you? Yeah.
And Jasper, and John Cage, and Andy Warhol, of course, and all these. Joan Didion, and
amazing.
Yeah, just wonderful.
What a scene!
And so. Yeah, Mark was very much in that whole society in New York, and going to study there was a great thing for me, and it helped me become me, I guess.
Yeah, we need to talk about meeting Andy and Bryan. I guess that's such a key moment. Other art students from various other art schools.
Oh, Bryan Eno.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well. Yeah, that happened just down the road from here, and I was working on the first few songs with Graham Simpson, and I asked Tim Head, who was a friend who was from University at Newcastle. Tim went to work with Klaus Oldenburg in his summer. Holiday thing. 1 year. And Tim came back. He's the one who turned me on to is this record I've got called The Velvet Underground, and because he got that in New York when he was, and I thought, wow, that's really good. And so he turned me on to that, and he turned me on to Andy Mackay because I said, "Oh, hi Tim, I'm writing songs at the moment," and I bumped into him, and I said, I want to kind of do some electronic stuff with it, and do anybody who's got a synthesizer? And he said, yeah, this guy Andy Mackay has got one, and he's at Reading, because Tim was teaching at Reading or something, and Andy came and with this oboe. I love the oboe. Mm-hmm. It's a beautiful instrument.
It is.
Oboe and cello, I do like very much. Anyway, he played oboe, and he had this synth, and after a few weeks of us working together, me and Andy and Graham Simpson.
Well, what was the synth? I mean,
but we needed somebody to...
Yes.
We didn't have a tape recorder, you see. And so we thought, well, let's try and record some of this stuff. And... and Andy says, well, I know this guy called Brian Eno. He's got a great tape recorder. And so Eno came to record us with this huge, I've told this story many times, but I always like to remember it. It's just this huge ferrograph tape recorder, this proper thing, and lugged this thing in and set it up and recorded it. And he saw Andy's VCS3 synthesizer, and so he started fiddling with that. And,
is that the first time he'd seen one?
And he joined the band.
Oh, my God.
And so then there were four of us, and so it kept growing like this. And
yeah, David O'List playing originally, though, didn't he?
Yeah, David played for a while, and another guy called Roger Bunn was on the very first demos, actually. And then Roger, then David, and then Phil Manzanero, who turned out to be great. And just before Phil, I remember putting an ad in the Melody Maker for a Wonder drummer. And we auditioned these drummers somewhere in Battersea, I think. And one of them, there's this guy who comes in with really long hair and covered with dust from the building site where he'd just been working. And that was Paul.
Oh,
and he was a Geordie like me, and I immediately kind of bonded with him. And his playing was so strong and direct and earthy, and a perfect complement to the kind of the stuff we were doing, which was like very different. I agree, because it grounded everything, you know.
Because that's not the natural sort of drummer that a sort of effete, arty lot like you would have. And I would say that, you know, that Paul was very much the secret sauce that made it kind of.
But if you listen to 2HB, you know, it's like it's so special what he's playing. It's not just a regular beat.
It's an honour to work with that guy. I love it.
I suppose the other person that comes into the picture now that makes a big difference is Anthony Price.
Ah, yeah. Well, how did this come about? I met Anthony at a party in Notting Hill, just across the road there, and I thought, who is this guy? You know, and he looked amazing. He was this kind of star fashion designer student who just left the Royal College. He graduated from there. He was
working for Sterling Cooper?
Like something out of space, and he was making these clothes for Sterling Cooper.
Yeah, the cap sleeve T-shirts.
Yeah, all those things, and and very kind of unusual outfits, and he had great hair and high boots, and he looked really great, and I then met him again in this club called the Speakeasy at the bar there, and I said, we met at this party or something, and I think he thought I was trying to pick him up or something, and he was like, who's this, you know? And anyway, we got on, and I said, I've got this band, and we're just, you know, finishing off this record, and maybe you could help us do the album cover, you know, and stuff, and that's what happened, and we did it together with the photography work with Carl Stoker. Very cool cat from
handsome as well.
He was, very dashing kind of American. He was married to Errol Flynn's daughter. Oh, interestingly enough.
Wow,
I just thought it was a bit of background.
That's a fabulous bit of background.
Anyway, we did this with a girl a model that Anthony worked with called Carrie Ann, and
it was Chris Jagger's wife, I believe.
Yeah, and she's she was perfect. We thought, like a chocolate box cover of this.
But were you showing
woman.
Anthony Richard Hamilton work? Were you or were you just guiding it that way?
I don't know, just stumbling along as how we normally do things.
But you certainly weren't dressing at that point like you did in the gatefold.
I might have shown him something that was an inspiration, which a record, an album I still have actually, which is. It's called The Romantic Music of Tchaikovsky.
Oh.
And on the front is this very glamorous kind of a picture of a very glamorous woman, and that was a kind of inspiration. I don't think I showed that to Anthony, but that was.
But again, this shows how wide they are. How wide the inspiration is. Because one thing I'm wondering is when you come together and it's this unified vision. And I remember what was mind-blowing for us when we first heard Roxy is this lyrical thing you've come up with, where you've invented, it sounded to me as a kid, you've invented this character who's this sort of rather jaded, sophisticate, something out of a very Fitzgeraldian,
and also,
if you will.
And listen,
he's a writer I did like very much.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
But that's what it was, and it was at the time of kind of.
No, I tell you what else made it like that was that Bryan mentioned names. It would be Quaglinos, it would be Mabel's. This list of
that's
real
a kind of Cole
places.
Porter type of thing, where you would sort of like spice it up with something. Give it a bit of zing, it was the idea. He was really good, Cole Porter.
Oh, God.
Yeah, really good. Mm-hmm.
But what about putting together the band look? Because
that just came together really with Anthony's guidance saying, "Oh, you look terrible like that," you've got to do something with this hair. Or, he had very strong opinions. It was a case of toning him down a bit. But he was really, really clever. Well, he is a genius, really.
Yeah. I remember the first video I ever did with you, which was actually for Is Your Love Strong Enough, in fact. David was in it.
I'm still trying to emulate your hairstyle.
That was Tim Pope.
Flowing locks.
But I remember no, that was the next one. That was the second video.
What's it called?
Windswept. Derek Jarman produced.
Did it blow it all away? Is that what happened, Guy? Windswept.
Yes. No, he had me playing the cello.
Yeah.
But no, because in Is Your Love Strong Enough, which David is in fact. That's what I first met David Gilmour properly. But there was this fantastic thing of the whole shoot had to hold because Anthony had called and said, you can't film anything until you've got the jacket. Oh. And we had to wait for Anthony to turn up with his jacket. He was absolutely right, though. He was absolutely right. It was a stunning jacket.
That happened as well, and what's it called, Live Aid as well. He's a character.
But I think as a kid, I remember thinking, I shouldn't say as a kid, because growing up, it was to see that first performance on Top of the Pops. To me, is one of the most seminal moments that I ever experienced. It was a band that, I'm assuming Andy was the sax player. You brought that in because you have a love of Charlie Parker as well.
I liked the fact that he played oboe. Because his oboe was his tone, his sound, but his tone on the sax is brilliant as well. And he brought this knowledge of classical music, so I kind of really respected Andy being sort of music teacher when I met him. He's really new. And also he's incredibly funny.
He's fantastic.
And it's interesting how humour is sometimes a great bonding thing in music. You must all find that. Mm-hmm. And it's because it's a pretty glum business making records sometimes, and you've got to try. And,
but I think what was so impressive to us when we were first buying records was this completeness about Roxy. It wasn't just the music and the lyrics. It was also the visuals that was so tied into it. It was an art piece in itself. That puts a lot of pressure on you going forward, doesn't it, as well?
That's why I look so haggard now. It's just like
to repeat that, which you did, obviously.
Well, also the fact that never...
You just try and do interesting things all the time. You know, you're trying to say, well, I've done that, let me try something else. And yeah, obviously everybody repeats themselves a bit, you know, but you try and always try and do something a little bit different each time. And that keeps it fresh and interesting, I think.
I think what's, when you look at your writing that went from the early 70s into the 80s, well, I get a feeling of someone experiencing life, that here is a young man originally who's writing about places, you know, fun things and ideas and wacky sort of visual images, and then eventually someone who's much more writing about personal stuff in the 80s. And it's written, looking at your catalogue now, and especially in this box, you know, you see that journey.
Oh, thank you. Well, it's it was very interesting putting it all together, I must say, helping to choose the tracks, and then somebody had a good idea of grouping the songs in sort of not so it wasn't done chronologically, say, you know. So there's one thing of one disc of sort of the well-known songs, and then one disc of my own writing, songs I've written myself, and then another one called Interpretations, which is covers of what I thought were good songs. And then the jazz stuff, and then
the jazz stuff is great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how was it when you came to that, the jazz thing? Was that was...
just meeting some good players, you know, like Colin Good, who was a great pianist and band leader, really, and a band arranger. And I worked with him on, I guess, as time goes by, and then it led to one thing, led to another, and then I thought it would be really good to try doing some of my songs with these players who like live in that era, you know, in the late 20s, 30s. They played like that, and sometimes dressed like that, and to have them play some of my songs as if they'd been, you know, songs from that period.
No, it was wonderful. I remember going to, I think it was Annabelle's. You had a party at Annabelle's. I was there that night. Yeah, it was fantastic.
Oh, right. Yeah.
But also, and in fact, when you showed up in Babylon Berlin, that TV show, and that was what song was that? It was one of yours, wasn't it?
I can't remember what I did, but it might have been Bittersweet or something.
But what was so fantastic, is, for anyone who doesn't know, is this amazing TV drama set in Berlin in the late 20s.
In the 30s.
Late 30s.
Yeah, yeah.
And then there's this fantastic nightclub scene, and you're there singing. But what's fantastic is, like, you don't bat an eyelid. It's like, and there's Bryan. Well, of course there's Bryan. It's like, there's absolutely no problem with that at all.
I'd much prefer being behind the camera, as you well know.
I've got to ask about one look, which is the GI shirt with the tie tucked in. Because there wasn't a single kid that I knew that didn't want to do that.
Well, that was Anthony's idea, of course, and typical. He liked the like an Elvis GI blues or something type of thing, and and we did this it was a TV performance of Love is the Drug at that time, and I nearly had poked my eye out the day before, and I had this great patch. I don't know if you remember.
Yeah.
We all had the patch after that.
It was genuine, but it looked good with the GI outfit, I must say. And John Gustafson face. And it was really good.
Well,
but also, it's that cover. And one of the most perfect Roxy music images is the cover of Viva, that one shot. And it's just the way you're looking at the girl, and the way that it's just so seems to sum up. There's one thing that's you and Roxy have always been so good at is the manifesto. Is just like, this is what it is.
That's right. Yeah.
So.
And I just want to finish off with just talking about your influences really quickly. Really, it's really to tell you and thank you, really, Bryan, because I yesterday I had coffee with Glenn Matlock, who said, "Well, tell Bryan that if it wasn't for him, we wouldn't have got Chris Thomas, because Steve Jones was a massive Roxy fan, and so was Glenn, and I guess Anarchy wouldn't have sounded the way it did. And when we certainly went to the Blitz Club and Billy's, we were just trying to do you guys. I got in touch with Robert Elms the other day, who was big face down at the Blitz, and I said, what song do you think was playing when we first met? And he goes, I know, it was Let's Stick Together. So, it just is, isn't it? It's reverberated down the years.
Oh, no, for sure. Yeah. I played at this John Wetton tribute gig.
Speaking of, he was great, John.
And it was, but what was funny, and it was because it was a John Wetton tribute, it was all prog rock players, all mad stuff. And this band was put together. It was me, Chris Difford, Phil Manzanera, and Bill Bruford came out of retirement to do this one. And of all the songs it could be, we played Let's Stick Together.
Oh, really?
And it was absolutely fantastic.
I hope you got the bass part right.
I did.
It needs some studying.
If I haven't got it by now.
Brad, do you think there might be any more new vocal stuff?
Oh, I don't know. I'm still learning the trade, really.
You'll never stop, Brian.
I'll tell you when I'm ready.
Well, no, the one thing, especially with what I would say about your record, especially your solo records, Brian, from the 80s, and it's because it's something I loved, worshipped at the altar of, and that's what was so great to become a part of, is that it was such an absolute distinctive sound. And this is something that Andy Newmark, right, our dear mutual friend, said years ago, which is that thing of like James Brown. James Brown works with some of the most amazing musicians in the world. It gets him in. But it doesn't matter who it is.
Like Maceo, for instance.
No, but within 4 seconds, it's a James Brown record. And I think you have that.
Absolutely.
Because you have that incredible cast list of musicians. As Johnny Marr's great quote, some people collect guitars. Brian collects guitarists.
But Johnny has your guitar from...
He's got the Hagstrom.
Yeah, he's
got the Hagstrom.
Yeah, because he played on a few things, and I thought, he's a big guitar collector, and
but it's true. And that's a wonderful thing about you, is that there is always this wonderful wellspring of kind of great musicians that you know.
Yeah, I've worked with some great people, and
also now turning it around the other way and supporting this great, this writer herself.
But I really like this record, so I hope everybody else
it's great
gets into it too.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you. It's been a real pleasure.
They're really great.
Thank you.
Honour.